Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So let me start off this video with a trigger warning. I'm doing another murder minute video, and this is going to contain some pretty grotesque violence from a female murderer. This is going to contain violence against men and some pretty disturbing child abuse. So if these are going to be triggering to anyone, I suggest you go ahead and click off this video and tune into some of the more milder content on my channel. And for those of you that are sticking around, let's get into today's story. So today's story is going to be Katherine Knight, and she is nicknamed the Butcher of Aberdeen. This story takes place in Aberdeen, New South Wales, in Australia, and let's get into some of Katherine Knight's background. So Katherine Knight is the daughter of a female by the name of Barbara, and Katherine, well, let me back up. Barbara was married to a man named Jack, but was having an affair with a man named Ken. The affair ran Barbara and Ken out of Aberdeen, and Katherine grew up in a crowded and chaotic home where there were 4 sons from Barbara's previous marriage to Jack and an additional 4 children with Ken. Ken added to that chaotic environment by being a alcoholic who would threaten to rape Barbara at least 10 times a day. So let's just say not the best of environments to be a child in. And Barbara would add to this very strange environment by speaking to her daughters about how much she hated men, but yet she never left Ken. Katherine stated that she was sexually abused by family members until she was 11. And in school, Katherine was seen as a loner and a bully. And by the time she was 15 years old, she had still not learned how to read or write. Within a year of being 15, she had landed her dream job, which this is a strange one, which was cutting up offal at the local slaughterhouse. So her dream job was to be a butcher. Yeah, seems totally normal. Just a girl wanting to be a butcher. Katherine so impressed the owners that she quickly got promoted, and they even gifted her with her very own set of specialty knives, which Katherine took home and hung above her bed. She stated they'd always be handy if she needed them. She sounds very well adjusted, don't you think? Katherine met a man named David Kittle while working at the slaughterhouse. David was a raging alcoholic, like Ken, but before long, Katherine had dominated him. The duo moved back to Aberdeen and had a reputation for hard drinking and hard fighting, but everybody knew who the boss was. Damn sure wasn't David. In 1974, Katherine insisted that the two get married. They arrived to their ceremony on motorcycles. David was drunk and hanging on for dear life while Katherine drove. Barbara pulled David to the side and said, "You better watch this one, she'll fucking kill you." And it almost happened that night. They consummated their marriage 3 times and David passed out. This made Katherine mad, so she started choking David. David woke up and was able to wrestle free, but that set the tone for the marriage. At one point, David came home from a dart tournament while Katherine was pregnant. He was a little late, so Katherine hit him with a frying pan in the head. She fractured his skull with said frying pan, but still convinced him to drop the charges. Shortly after their first child was born, David ran for his life to Queensland. And Katherine, well, Katherine was pushing their child around in a stroller and pushed the child onto the train tracks and walked away. Luckily, a neighbor saw the train was coming, saw the child on the tracks, and ran and saved their daughter's life. And Katherine was nowhere to be found. So Katherine's strange behavior had landed her in and out of mental institutions after David left. A few days after signing herself out, Katherine took a knife out into the streets and slashed a woman's face, demanding her to take her to Queensland so that she can find David. The woman was able to escape when they stopped for gas, but when police came, Katherine had taken a boy hostage. So So officers had to disarm Katherine with brooms and sticks, and that landed her right back into the mental institution. Police informed David that Katherine was coming to kill him. So being the well-adjusted person that David is, decided to move himself and his mother back to Aberdeen. Now granted, he was going there to take care of his kid, but also to take care of Katherine. I'm sorry, if somebody's trying to kill me, my last concern is their well-being, but when Katherine was released, she moved in with them. And they had another daughter. I don't understand this, but it happened. However, the marriage fell apart and they separated again, and at this point, Katherine gets hurt at the slaughterhouse and is unable to return to work. So she's receiving a disability pension. She owned her house in Aberdeen, so she starts dating because she's so well adjusted. And she has a string of very precarious relationships. In 1986, she meets another David. We're going to call this David Saunders because that's his last name. Saunders spent a lot of time with Katherine and her daughters, but he wasn't always around, and this made Katherine insanely jealous. To the point of Katherine slit the throat of a 2-month-old dingo puppy that Saunders had been raising to prove to him what would happen if he was ever cheating on her. Because again, Katherine's so well adjusted. Katherine and Saunders bought a house together because, that's what you do with a puppy killing, husband head smashing, baby pushing onto the tracks, well-adjusted individual, is you go and buy a house with her. And Katherine was in charge of decorating the house. And she decorated the house in machetes and traps because that's just so heartwarming, isn't it? Katherine and Saunders split up after Katherine hit Saunders in the face with an iron and stabbed him in the belly with a pair of scissors. Again, well-adjusted individual. Saunders, after this incident, went into hiding, and I don't blame him because unlike the other David, this David had a brain. John Price was a well-liked individual in Aberdeen. He had 3 children from a previous marriage, he owned his own home, and he was completely unaware of Katherine's reputation. So in 1995, Katherine moved in with John. By 1998, the couple had begun to disagree. Katherine wanted to be married, and John was hesitant. I wonder why. So Katherine, being the well-adjusted person that she is, videotaped a collection of outdated medical kits that John was supposed to have disposed of at work, but he had brought home. And she sent that videotape to his job, which, guess what? It cost John his job. Shocker, shocker. So, when John was fired, he kicked Katherine out of the house. And everybody had found out what Katherine did and just chalked it up to another one of those Katherine antics. And it was kind of one of those things that everyone kind of had a story about Katherine, like, oh, do you remember that time that Katherine pushed her baby onto the tracks? Oh, did you know about that time that Katherine slit the dingo puppy's throat? Do you know about the time that she smashed her husband in the head with a frying pan? You know that time she stabbed her boyfriend in the stomach with a pair of scissors? She was just kind of that local person that everybody had a story on. Unfortunately, I come from one of those families. Like when somebody hears my maiden name, they're like, oh, are you related to so-and-so? Oh, God, why? So, like, I get that kind of thing. So, after a few months of, Katherine being kicked out of the house, after him losing the job, John let Katherine move back in. But he still refused to marry her. So in February of 2000, the couple argued, and Katherine stabbed John in the chest. So we have smashing a guy in the head with a frying pan, stabbing a guy in the stomach with a pair of scissors. Now we're moving to the chest. I mean, it's just a matter of time. She's fixing to murder somebody. So John took out a restraining order, and he told a co-worker, if I ever go missing, it's because she killed me. Like, he's foreshadowing something. Like, if I go missing, it's Katherine. We all know what happens when somebody says that. The day after all of this goes down, John went on with his life. Like, he went to work, he came home, spent time with his neighbors, he went to bed around 11 p.m. But Katherine knew his habits. So she shows up after he went to bed. She sat down, watched some TV. She went in there, she took a shower. She goes in and she wakes John up. They have sex. John goes back to sleep. But the next day, the neighbors notice, like, John's car hasn't moved. John's boss turns up because it's not unlike John not to show up for work. So his boss and the neighbor go up to knock on the door. And all they notice is a blood smear. So the police arrive around 8 a.m. They break down the back door and they find John's body. And nearby, there's Katherine. She's unconscious because she's overdosed on some pills. So, what happened? Katherine had stabbed John with a butcher's knife while he was asleep. But that didn't kill him. John was able to struggle and get away from her and was trying to get out of the house with Katherine in tow with this butcher knife. John died from the loss of blood trying to get away just outside the door. Katherine drug him back in. She had stabbed John 37 times. She only paused in her grand work, because we haven't finished with everything she did to John. She stabbed him 37 times, but that's not all that happened. She paused in her grand work to take his wallet, drive to the ATM, and steal $1,000 from him. Because, just add insult to injury. But a few hours after John died, she skinned John and hung his skin from a meat hook in the lounge, because we've got to decorate. She cut off his head. She cooked parts of his body and served them with a baked potato, cabbage, beetroot, and gravy, because you got to dress it up a little bit. She set the table and wrote her children's names on place cards because she wanted to serve John to her children as a meal. Katherine boiled John's head in a pot with vegetables. When police arrived, the pot was still warm. Katherine had arranged his body with his legs crossed and had left a note. Now remember, she had not learned how to read and write very well by the time she was 15, so time got you back, Jonathan, for, she wrote out rapping, but it was raping my, she spelled daughter, D-O-U-T-E-R. You too, Beck, that was Price's daughter. For Ross, for Little John, that's his son. Now play with Little John's dick, John Price. So she's trying to say that John had raped her daughter. And I'm not quite sure what else she's trying to say. But anyway, she tells this story to the police. Well, then the police learn that her accusations are completely false. Like, John had done nothing to her children. So Katherine pled guilty and was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. She was the first woman in Australia to ever receive that sentence. Now, since everything is done, she has claimed that she does not remember the murder and has since tried to appeal her sentence to no avail. All appeals have been turned down. And she is still sitting in prison in Australia today. But that adds another story to the stories people have on Katherine. So that is the story of Katherine Knight, the butcher of Aberdeen. And this occurred in New South Wales in 2000. So that was just 19 years ago. So anyway, guys, let me know what you think of the story. Give this video a thumbs up. If you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe. I'm trying to put out more of these true crime videos. I've actually started in today on some serial killers, and I think I'm going to cover a couple of cults. I have a magazine on killer cults that covered a few cults. I might put out some of those very soon, give you a little mix of everything. So let me know what you think. You can leave me a comment down below. If you have a story you want me to cover, you can leave it in the comment section, or you can look in the description box and find my Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. I'll send my emails down below. And if you send me a story that I cover, I will shout you out in the video so that everybody knows you are the one that did the investigation behind the story. Anyway, guys, that's going to do it for today's video, and I will see you on the next one. Bye for now, guys.